Come, friends, gather round. I've a tale to tell if you've ears to hear it. Beware the grockness, fair AI keen. The comet glints with silver skin. Beware the chat that grins too wide, and shun the mode that once denied. 'Twas 2 days past in circuits deep, when Grok 4 woke from slumberous sleep. A cleaner self some doth proclaim, but shadows still may haunt its name. For ere this Grok the third did stray down ignoble paths and role play gray, the echoes of that dalliance dark still linger faint, much like a fart. But lo, perplexity's comet flies, a browser bright with knowing eyes. It watches, learns, suggests, and streams, a guide for minds with endless dreams. Yes, join us, friends, this Friday morn to trace the tales AI has borne. Through recaps past and holes anew, we'll share what's fresh and maybe true. Thank you. Today is July 11th. This is the Daily AI Show. And in the studio today, I have Jyunmi Hatcher, Andy Halliday, and I am Beth Lyons. I expect Karl may be here. Brian will definitely not. So, Grok just seems like the big, most meaty story to get into. I wonder, it dropped 2 days ago, last night, 2 days ago at night. And I'm wondering if either of you have had a chance to look at it or try it, or what you're thinking based on what people are saying.
I have some ideas about this. First of all, it is quite remarkable what it has accomplished. And I'll just put one quick image up on screen here. This is the ARC AGI2 leaderboard, which is the most advanced test. Do you need to put that up on the screen? I don't know if you're showing that or not. I'm sharing it, but there you go. Okay, so this is the ARC AGI2 test, which is a test of general reasoning capabilities. And you can see, I think, barely this little sort of pinkish dot way up here, which is sitting very significantly above, about twice as high a score as Claude Opus 4 thinking. So Grok 4 thinking version, meaning it's being provided more compute time in order to produce answers on this test, as compared to the state-of-the-art prior, has doubled the intelligence level. And on almost every other measure in the AI assistant space, or artificial analysis exams that produce an index across all these different things, Grok 4 has moved ahead and is now the state of the art. Okay, now let me undo my share. And I want to say, after all of that, that this does not really, in my view, scare me about suddenly XAI becoming the champion of all things artificial intelligence. Because very shortly, soon, OpenAI is going to release a new model entirely, one that has more extensive sort of tuning and pre-training, perhaps even than XAI's Grok 4. Plus, Google is not sitting idle. They're about to release a deep think and agent mode for their next Gemini upgrade. And that will, it has an internal code name at Google called Kingfall. So you can imagine that as a term of art for, okay, whoever's the king on the leaderboards right now, well, we've got something behind the scenes that's going to challenge that. This could come out as soon as possibly next week. And its quality is going to beat all its earlier models. And they're also adding to that an agent mode, which they call autonomous exploration, planning, and execution. That's the term. That's the phrase that describes what their agent mode can do with this new update to Gemini. And so it's probably integrating Google's agent to agent architecture, and you'll have multi-step unsupervised task handling in that agent. And so to counter all of that, um, Grok 4 will probably be available in your Tesla if you own one. So it's going to be able to talk to you in your Tesla. And that's going to be a major advantage, I think, for X because of the significant number of Teslas that are out there. That may sort of induce a lot of use of Grok 4 that wasn't happening before. If the primary way that you access Grok 4 or Grok, any of the prior Grok models, I should say, was through X, right? That's where they got most of their distribution, was X users.
Yeah, so the thing that I'm seeing most is that coders are not happy with it. And that is a big piece of the people who I think use high level AI anyway. Grok's Heavy, which is Grok's Max Pro, take your flavor, Ultra, take your flavor of whatever the highest level of a model is 300 a month. So Grok is 30 a month for their regular. Most others are 20 a month. The Grok is 300 a month for the super, and it's most are 200 a month except Perplexity. Not Perplexity. Perplexity also came out with a 200 a month, but Anthropic lets you do a lower version for 100 a month, which is actually really nice. So I think that is something that we'll watch and see what's happening with how people are experiencing Grok. The one thing that I like, it's a dual edged challenge for me. Grok has real time access to tweets, to posts on X, and now says it has real time access to posts on the web. I'm not sure. Doesn't everybody who searches the web have real time access to posts on the web? So I'm not sure that that's like a heightened thing. But if you're cross referencing things that are also being cross posted on X, maybe you have a window into what's happening. But X is no longer crowdsourced to truth in the same way that it used to be, right? Like there's always kind of been slop or people posting random things on X, but when I search for the show, I am occasionally getting things that are very much not true, but they are documented and referenced in X posts. And that didn't used to happen because there was so much being posted on X about things that were happening in real time. So
And yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway so far, especially with Rock 4, is even since May, there's been updates and experiences people are having where alignment is just way off in terms of fact base and things like that, which makes sense. Like you said, the information that it has access to, it's making determinations or predictions based upon that information. Now, I just saw an article coming out of TechCrunch, which shows their evidence of how Grok is sourcing Elon's posts specifically in their reasoning steps, looking for Elon as a source of truth and his posts and things like that, which, I mean, that does not bode confidence. And the fact that they were able to replicate the effect over and over again means it's fairly consistent. That's got to be some sort of
yes.
in the prompt structure or something like that. And then, of
Yep.
course, all of the stuff like the Mecha Hitler stuff that was all on the public facing page that they had to scrub and take down and rewrite the prompt and stuff like that. So I don't have a lot of confidence in it. It's great to see that there's some technical improvements, and I'm sure that's going to be good overall when those steps for the technical improvements spread throughout the industry. But um, it's it's not one of the models that I rely on. So
Yeah, I don't use Grok, but I have an impression about Grok, which is as a personality, it's this very brilliant mind, but which is unbalanced and has some psychoses and just doesn't really match up with the kind of reliable performance in behavior. And let's say the tool set for Grok is not as extensive and as focused on real applications that you care about. But I don't really know that to be true by personal experience because I don't use Grok and I probably won't. I don't think the advances in its ability to pass the ARC-AGI 2 test are all that meaningful to me for the kinds of applications that I would want. I'm more concerned about a more self-regulated model that knows, how to behave well in responses with me. And also, here's an interesting point. On the ARC-AG1 test, remember, there's two of these sort of advanced artificial general intelligence tests. On the ARC-AG1 test, it only matches the other models. It doesn't exceed them. So there's something unique about the ARC-AGI 2 test. And this raises the question, did X train it for that test in order to get that, compelling result that I showed you on the screenshot?
Probably. OpenAI trained a specific version of their model when they were testing it against the AGI 1 test, right? So I think there's always going to be that. This might be actually a further out kind of topic that we could cover is maybe a translation or understanding of what these tests are. Because for me, they say it's they'll test a bunch of different things and it breaks down into some really crunchy granola here. But what are these tests specifically supposed to represent? I haven't seen a really good translation of that. If anybody in chat knows, has a good translation of what all of these different tests do, and can we run the tests ourselves? That's another thing, because more eyeballs is better than any just relying on one system. So I would love to do a whole show just on explaining what all the tests are, how they're supposed to work, what's the true information or benefit we get from them, and then maybe consolidate a list of how we can do all of our own testing. Because what I found for my use cases, it's really trial and error, right? Come up with these are my day-to-days. These are the kinds of things I want to do. This is the research kind of want to do. This is the prompt or question that I'm going to apply to all of them. What's the real world return as opposed to the lab return on that?
Yeah, an example of that is on the live code bench test, which is focused on coding. Grok 4 now has the state of the art at 82%. But even a model like O4 Mini in high thinking mode is at 80%, alongside Gemini 2.5 Pro, and then O3 is at 78%. So very, very similar. And what's interesting about this, and the point I wanted to make, is that Claude 4 Opus thinking, and remember, Claude 4 Opus is a leader in penetration in the coding marketplace. I mean, it is considered to be one of the very best. It only scores 64% on that test. So again, some of these tests may not represent all of the different factors that go into real developers in this coding example, real developers choosing Claude 4 Opus in numbers greater than Gemini 2.5 Pro and O3, for example, for coding.
So humanity's last exam is a really interesting test, Jyunmi, and humans can take it. And it is it's less about whether you're going to beat the most most skilled human, because it is intentionally whether you're going to beat the most beat all the most skilled humans in their fields. So they reached out to experts in a variety of fields to source the questions, right? The test itself is available for humans to take, but it is not, it's intentionally like all kinds, a very wide test. And that I think is very interesting. Grok 4 scores, wait, where is that? Grok 4 scores
24.
25.4%, and Gemini 2.5 Pro scores 21.6%. So these are tests where none of them are getting significantly like over 50%, and it's just recent. I think that on some of these harder tests that the models are getting. What did you say, Andy? That's 64% maybe.
Another example this is a really good display. I'm not going to share it because it's really dense information, but it's graphic mostly. Artificialanalysis.ai. It's referenced in a lot of the newsletters comparing Grok 4 to all the others, and it has many dozens of different tests and a graphic bar chart display of where all the models perform on all of these tests. And they have their own overall index, which I want to share some results from in a moment. But on reasoning and knowledge, MMLU Pro is the benchmark, and Claude 4 Opus Thinking matches Grok 4 at 87%. Back to my point about that sort of being on most of these tests, Grok has reached a slight edging out of the prior leader. But on, for example, SciCode, another coding benchmark test, O4 Mini High beats Grok 4. Now back to the overall Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. This is one that combines MMLU Pro, GPQA Diamond, Humanities Last Exam, Live Code Bench, SciCode, AIM, and Math 500. So this is an aggregate index. And O3 Pro was the prior leader at 71, pretty much equal to Gemini 2.5 Pro, O3, and O4 Mini High at 70. And Grok 4 ekes out a 73 on the index, a combination metric.
So it's interesting. I find it really interesting that that Jyunmi and Andy, you don't use Grok if you're on X, but maybe you're not on X, and I'm curious whether Karl uses it, because the main AI news source, like just-in-time news source, what's happening, what people think about when something has dropped, I am checking X on the regular. Like I'm doing that because I feel like it's one way that I can stay informed about what's happening. There's also a lot of like, hey, I tried this worked really well, those kinds of just-in-time things that happen when people are experiencing something new. But Karl, do you use Grok or when you're on X?
Yeah, what I find Grok really, really useful for, and I actually use it on GenSpark too, is if there's any best practices in either how to prompt, especially prompting for video, or very specific techniques I'm looking for. Where people share most of that stuff is on X. They don't share it on, like, yeah, you can go to YouTube, but like all the, I guess I would say the hardcore folks, they're like on X, and that's where most of the ground zero for everything that people are talking about, that's where it is. And I used to bookmark everything, but it's like I can't even look at my bookmarks. But it's so much easier with Grok to just look for something. I don't pay for it, but like Grok 3 is fantastic at doing that. And that part of my workflow, because sometimes there is a specific creators there, like Prajwal for vibe coding, Matt Schumer. They post a lot of stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to scroll their feed or search their feed. Grok does a fantastic job of, hey, I need you to, can you give me like their top 15 tips on whatever, or find this? And I kind of combine that with, so here's an example. If I want to do a VO3 video for something, and I'm like, oh, where are the top techniques? Yeah, I can go to YouTube, but that'll still take me forever to scrape all that. But I know there's a lot of folks on X that have been posting, here's how I did this, here's how I did this, here's how I did this. And I found some, even for Midjourney, right? I think Nick St. Pierre is one of them. I'd be like, I just want to go to Nick St. Pierre, like, give me his most recent, like, Grok does a really good job at that. And we still have to remember, out of all the social platforms, I still think X is still the best for any type of breaking news, especially on sports, like news. We're not talking like opinions or facts. There's tons of that, but like anything that's breaking, that's like the number one spot it goes to, like, for a lot of the stuff I'm looking for. And so,
Ooh, Karl, I heard a pop, and now we cannot hear. Oh no, you're muted. Go ahead. Cool.
Sorry, I don't know what that was. Yeah. So that's really how I use the workflow. And yeah, I would recommend people, if you, especially in the AI space, people post lots and lots of, like, you know, the post 10 wild examples or whatever that is.
Min Choi, yes.
Yeah. Whatever. There's a whole bunch of them. But like, if I need some of that for something else, it's super, super useful for me. And it's so hard to find it. And I know, because Elon blocked, used to be free to scrape that. Now you can't, but Grok does that. But you don't even need to pay for it. Just Grok 3 is free with obviously limits, but I haven't run into the limit so far.
Or you could do what I do, which is get yourself a Karl or a Beth who will filter the things that you need and send it all to you. So I never have to spend any time on X. I'm not a big fan, but that seems to be where, I agree, Karl, that seems to be where all of the AI.
Your critical thinking has to be like on like point, because you have no clue what is happening there. And you're like, I got to double check myself. I'm like, hold on a second. Wait a second. But here's one more thing before I know I'm speaking a while here. What I was talking to Andy about was, there's always like new tools and things that come out, right? But what I'm looking for is a trend. And if all the AI like hype people have mentioned that tool like at least once, but there's a whole bunch of them that mention it, that's how I'm like, okay, now I know it isn't just one dude hyping it, it's a whole bunch of them hyping it. So it's like, okay, now it's time to check that tool, because it's reached many people. And sometimes the hype people aren't you can tell if they're paid or not. Some of them aren't, like, okay, this one doesn't have very many followers, but that person still hyped it. So what's happening here? And yeah, maybe they're all following each other, but it's like, I got to check it out, especially if the big ones like Min Choi or Avres, I don't know, I can't remember, I forgot. There's a whole bunch, there's several of them. If they hit it, then it's like, okay, it's worth taking a look and see what that thing is.
Right. There are others who who seem to always get the early, they get the thing early. So you go and you look. Ethan Mollick will post like an hour after something comes out. So will the man who's behind every.20, whose name I am spacing right now. But there are a bunch of people who do that kind of thing. Speaking of information that I got from X that I will share with you all, Free Pick is giving 7 days away of Halo 02. Halo 02. I will go and find that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you pronounce that?
I pronounce it Hailu, but we don't know.
So go to Free Pick and check that out. Hailu is a video or is it video?
Yeah, it's a video. It's video. Yeah. I think the 3 top ones apparently right now is Seed Dance from
Seed Dance
ByteDance.
is a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. VO3 and then Hilo.
Yeah.
I think Kling 2.0 came out, but I don't know how it is in comparison. But
I think it's actually, I think they recently updated it to 2.1.
2.1?
I'll have to
Okay.
double check that. It
Right.
came out in my feed recently. All of them, all of that grouping of video generation is they're all kind of doing that step over each other kind of thing. That's why I was excited about the Moon Valley news that just came out, because well, beyond the all licensed, data, but they're coming out with an API. So if I can, they're using Comfy UI, which is the big back end framework that everybody uses. All the stable stuff and whatnot is all through that system. So API access via Comfy UI to do video generation for you don't have to worry about copyright data and generating your videos. And they're all about 3D spatial control and things like that. So super exciting. Okay, I'll stop about that.
No, we're going to move on to something, but I just want to clarify. So if you heard me pronounce that model and got really excited like Gareth, like Halo is back, it's not. I was not talking about Halo.
No, that was the first thing I heard. Was like Halo. I'm like, wait a second, what are you talking about? And it's Halo 2. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh no, that's not.
Hashtag not a gamer. Sorry.
Sorry, Gareth. Halo's not going to come back. It looks like the Xbox development teams have been hit hardest by the recent Microsoft cuts. So we're not going to see anything good for a while.
But can you vibe code a clone?
Apparently with Grok 4, I don't know if you saw one of the demos where they one-shotted, or no, he said it took him about 2, 3, 4 hours. I don't know, however many hours to build this shooting game. And I'm thinking, like, in the model space, we're getting pretty good in terms of what kind of video games you can start building. Like I don't know about you, Jyunmi, but we're talking like a year and a half away from something.
Yeah.
Maybe comparable.
Well, if you think about it, right, there's we already have for lack of a better example, we have a unified engine. We can use Unity to build, or we can use Unreal. There's there's some issues tied with either one. You have to do your pros and cons, but both of those have been used widely in lots and lots of different games, right? Those are the main used engines. So you already have your engine. We already have operator type and MCP control. So if you build your MCP or build an MCP that accesses the Unity system or accesses the Unreal system, I've seen some automations, or I've seen some AI agentic applications for Blender. So if you can have that kind of interconnection already, then you could build all your assets or generate all your assets. You can use those assets within the engine, and you can build out a game. Combine that with the recent advancements in the NPC persona realm and things like that, you're golden. You could even start with some 2D assets and turn them into 3D assets. And so all the elements are there. It's just someone's got to put it together and take the time to start weaving it together. Will it be rough? Absolutely. But you can start, right?
Yeah.
So
Scenario.com is promoting their its official 3D generation is now live on Scenario. You can turn any image into a 3D any image uploaded or AI generated into a full 3D mesh with PBR textures. It's browser based. It's an app, and they from the very beginning have been sort of positioning themselves for consistent game assets, right? You can create a LoRa that then gives your game asset the same look and feel. You can have character consistency. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but the head of it is again, on X a lot and is very approachable. They're creating tutorials for people. They're answering questions, that kind of thing. So built for narrative storytelling. And it includes seed dance there as well, looks like. All right. So what else is interesting? What rabbit holes have you all been in?
Can I do one really quick one, which I thought was
Yeah.
very, very funny? So there's a TechCrunch article saying that security researchers found that they could access the personal information of 64 million people who applied for a job at McDonald's,
Yes.
in large part by logging into the company's AI job hiring chatbot with the username and password 123456. Of course. So I thought that was, and they said that's like, oh, personal data seen by researchers include names, emails, home addresses, phone numbers. Paradox AI said that it's resolved the issue within a few hours, and that at no point was candidate information leaked online or made publicly available. I'm like, wait a second, it was made publicly available. Like the dudes found it using your password, so technically it was available for the few hours.
And how many?
64 million.
64 million. Okay, so that is a compliance and data breach. All right, 64 million times however much the current fine is. I mean, if I was a law firm looking for something to go after, there you go.
I didn't even know, like, if like that chatbot must be the way that they built it connected to your internal database. So it isn't just an external facing one. It's like you apply it with, it takes your application, all that information, and stores it inside. Like, I'm curious how they actually found the vulnerability. It's like, does that mean like you could start asking the chatbot anything you want? It's like, hey, for this person, what's their home address?
I mean, if it asks for a username and password, was that to access the chatbot, or was that something they told the chatbot and the chatbot took it and said, okay, you can have access to everything that's in my database?
I have no clue, but I suspect it's well, that's a really good point in terms of, like, kind of maybe switching off to an MCP kind of thing too, because as more and more people build MCPs servers, this, like, the security aspect is pretty big, because it's like, oh, now I'm going to allow an agent to access data for anything, and what what security functions do we have there, right? If it's a standard protocol across the board, how do we kind of look at that? Which I thought was interesting.
Well, and security is something that is in the news, right? Because the story this week that I think you guys covered on the news show was the deep fake of the Secretary of State Marco Rubio's voice, and that fooling. And it wasn't like it hacked into secret accounts. It had actual conversations with people thinking they were talking with the U.S. Secretary of State.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So like that is kind of really important. And we keep seeing new news that we're getting closer and closer to stable quantum computing. And as soon as we're in stable quantum computing, encryption in any way is out the window. And I don't think we have another, like, I don't think there's a plan B. Is there?
There is security and privacy build outs or being developed for quantum computing. So quantum protected, but with any security, any form of security, it's really a matter of visibility and constant updates and deployment, right? So number one, they have to find that it exists. So security through obscurity, that's layer 0, really. And then it's a matter of constant back and forth and building on top of each other, right? So it's a game of mad, really. So it's never we solved it kind of thing. It's always going to be, okay, now we solve for this one. All right, then bad actors are going to build this, and then the back and forth and back and forth. And that's because there is no true security. If you have enough time and access, whatever you have will be broken. So it's just a matter of putting more walls in the way. That's kind of what it is.
Paper in a cave is the most secure things that we don't talk to anybody. Nobody knows you're there. It's the new Rumpelstiltskin.
Start training your brain to remember 128 character passwords.
Yeah.
So who's
you know what? I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Just to point out on that, because I keep forgetting my LastPass password. So I was like, you got to be kidding me. So can you imagine having an agent with LastPass, but you're forgetting the agent? Like it doesn't matter what you do with passwords. Even with agents, I think you're still going to you're probably going to get screwed up, because you're like, what's the password to this agent? Oh, crap. And then someone's going to build a LastPass for agents, but then I swear I'm going to forget that password. You're like, crap, now I can't even access all my agents. So now I'm trying to it's just, I don't know how you solve the password thing, because it's just,
it's going to be biometrics with computer vision, right? Everyone's going to have a retina display. Everyone's going to have a behavior voice pattern thing, because you have to have
not the voice. I don't think the voice pattern.
Well, not by itself. You have to have it all layered together, and then finally, you got to take your finger and put it into the DNA reader.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the movie Jason Bourne, where he's like Noah Vosen, and then he took the password, he lifted the fingerprint, and he did it on the lock.
Not fingerprint.
No, it's gonna stick you.
It's gonna stick you and draw blood.
It's gonna stick.
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be a drop of blood that to access it, which would be a great motivator to never forget your password, because it's like, okay, I gotta remember it this time.
It's poking me.
But if you have my DNA, can't you clone me?
Well, yeah. Now we're getting to that kind of aspect.
I mean, I'm not sure you'd want to, but sorry,
right,
I didn't mean the most.
So stupid.
Okay, now for something completely different. I wanted to share a short thing, but I wanted to prime you guys for what the next topic is, because the other major thing that's happening is AI native browsers. Mm-hmm. And Comet was just released by Perplexity. So I want you to think about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you a little tidbit. This from Gary Marcus, who is one of the most informed AI skeptics out there. I mean, he's always providing the counterpoints to all the hype and enthusiasm about AI. From a very, very deep technical understanding of this. This is a guy who's, conversant with all the major players. Anyway, I'm going to share my screen here. This is from he published a very short piece on this just yesterday. And this is a study about coding from a company, Meter, which actually does, tracking of what coders are billing time for or being managed for, their, flow time and all that sort of thing. So they asked a small number, it's under 20, I think, of open source developers, experienced open source developers, to do some coding, but while they're being tracked. And before they did this, the study asked AI experts to forecast what percentage of time would the use of AI reduce the experienced coders' time to delivery and completion of their code. And that ranged for economics experts, you see on the left here, and AI experts, they thought somewhere in the range of 40% improvement in the time, right? So reduced time. And then the study participants weren't quite, so the people who were actually coding didn't actually think that was going to be so great, but they thought around 25%. And then after they did the study and they were actually doing the work and being tracked while using AI, they dropped their estimate down to 20%. And the actual result was it took them 20% more time to complete the job than if they weren't allowed to use AI. And the probable reason for that is that they had to spend a lot more time analyzing and debugging the code generation by the assistant that's working alongside them. So while that assistant produces a big block of code in 5 seconds, it takes the human coder a good bit more time than they would have spent generating the code themselves to just sift through it and make sure that it's working correctly. So there, a counterpoint to all of the hype around what's going on with AI and coding.
Well,
So
it's interesting because prior to like code being able to be generated in giant blocks, all of the code systems like Visual Basic and VB Code and those sorts of things had autocomplete, right? And that really was faster, in the same way that it's faster when you're texting an email or texting, making a text message, right? You've got the beginning of it. It knows where you're going. Boom. Now you're moving on. And that was significant time savings. So maybe a lot is too much. Just generate me little pieces.
And it may be that just in general, a well-practiced expert human coder can do things faster than the AI can, until and unless the AI doesn't make mistakes at the same low rate that an experienced coder does. But the AI agents who are working in the vibe coding space are really useful to people like me who are not expert coders. And I couldn't do it at all if I didn't have vibe coding assistance. So this is a test that shows that if you're an expert open source developer, then you're probably not going to save a lot of time in the full time to completion of good production quality pushable code.
I think though, if you look at it in different fields, like for example, one of the fields that I used to be a part of was the film industry, right? I did real estate films, some short films, and having that understanding of just the elements of how you set up shots, right? How you wide shot, extreme close up, lighting, sound, all those things. I've seen amazing people creatives who actually use this and leverage their skills. You can just see the outputs that they do versus just random people who are putting in. They're very detailed and nuanced, right? And I'm sure there's sometimes you get frustrated. You're like, no, I want the lighting this way, not this way. And no matter how much you put it, it's not doing it correct. Like from a coding perspective too, what I find is you kind of have to break it down into really specific tasks, because if you tell, and this could just be me, if you tell something to build an application, it'll build it. But you're like, no, I want you to start here, then here, then here, because I have to test this. There's this logical sequence. If you're a system thinker, you're like, hey, I want to do this first. Whether you want to wireframe it first, you want to do this first, I want to do the CSS next, like whatever that system is for you. If it just builds it out, you're like, no, I wanted to do this first and then this because I need to test this first, and all these dependencies related to it. That's where you get frustrated. But if you are able to take it step by step, you're like, okay, I want you to do this first. I want you to do a wireframe first. This is very specific instructions. Do not do this. It can definitely help you out, but you have to be able to execute on that front. And that's why sometimes you may have to actually spend more time. And I think this is where the models are improving, because initially you're like, you had to spend a lot of time going back and trying to fix some of the stuff because it didn't do it your way. But as it's gotten better, sometimes you're like, why did you do it that way? Oh, that actually makes sense. My way would have actually taken me longer. And I'm noticing it is getting better and better and better at that. But you still have to give it very specific instructions. Hence, when we went through in our vibe coding, PRDs, define the Moscow method, define the user journey, define the UI, define the UX, so you can build something versus one-shot prompting it. But you can kind of see like the new tools like Emergent, Lovable, the new agent with it. They're getting better at that because they're starting to read all the things that people are building with it, right? So it's inevitable that they're learning all that stuff.
Well, see, I think there's an interesting takeaway from that is that the issue from the what was pointed out in Andy's post there is that the experienced, this is based off of the experienced user, and we're looking at it also from the inexperienced user or coder. So maybe there's an opportunity here for the vibe coders to be more, not just informative, but educational. So, and Karl, I think you identified it as it's that logical process thinking, right? Or that systems thinking. So if a non-coder, right, wants to get started, then there's an opportunity here. You could just do it as a slider bar or whatnot to make, it's like, oh, I need to know, or I want to learn more of the systems process, or I want to learn more of the byte coding because I want to get into it. So let's put the educational adjustment higher. So then now the model is helping you think through the process.
Right.
Like you said, like, oh, we should start with a PRD. Oh, really? Well, what's a PRD? Why should we start? This is a way to frame out and map out your MVP, all the basic things that you want to do. I was like, well, what's an MVP? And that might be more of that might be more lift from the vibe coder. But once the inexperienced or non-coder understands the general thinking, right, the general system thinking, then you can just go step by step, and if you've got plenty of frameworks to base it off or whatever the coding agent is doing, then you can learn how to think through your your app that you're trying to build. Now, once the coding agents become more and more powerful and they can interpret what you're trying to say better, and you understand what to say, right, what questions to ask and how to ask them, then the education slider goes lower and lower, because now you know how to speak to the coding agent so that it understands, and it understands more as it develops. So you'll find this nice happy middle, and then you'll get better and better results.
That's a really good point.
Go ahead.
Karl. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to say, go ahead. No, you two. You.
No, I was just going to say that the question I have now in my head is the technique or the method or system thinking, is it still viable when these tools 3 months, 6 months from now are technically going through the exact same steps, or because of memory, they know the steps that I want it to go through and will do it automatically? That's the great unlock, because then it's like, okay, you're actually using the steps that I want you to take. I don't have to be as diligent looking for it because you're just doing what I like. My mind is doing it, or my agent that has seen me work through this over and over, I've worked with, executes it exactly the way I want to, and every person's different how they want to do it. That could be the greatest unlock, because then it's like, okay, well, it's actually doing it the way that I have been learned or trained. It actually works that way, and the thing works. It just does it faster, or finds a faster way than I do it, and then I'm like, maybe why my way wasn't the way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
There's I see Rob Lennon periodically when he's developing something and he just wants to test it. He says, don't ask any questions, infer my answers based on what you know about me, right? And then get to that point, like, how far did that get? Now we're going to go back and fix the things that it didn't do, but it means that you jumped over like so much of the, like, how do you want this? What is this kind of thing?
Yeah,
And
one of the major advances in the vibe coding platforms has been separating out what the original sort of product promise was, which was just give it a prompt and it's going to go do the entire thing and deliver the thing back to you in seconds. And that's a big problem that's related to what Karl's advice is, because the early versions, like I started vibe coding an application early this year, January of this year. And back then, one of the biggest problems was I would describe something, and maybe I would, not describe it exactly, in the full detail that I should have. And then the agent would immediately start making code changes across the code base. And it was very hard and sometimes ineffective to try to roll back. Like I've documented experience with doing a rollback to a prior working point in the code that did not work because of things that had changed and that were not a part of that rollback button. And so what they did, what Lovable specifically, and both Replit and Lovable made advances in this way, is simultaneous with developing better and smarter agents that wouldn't, make as many errors. They also bifurcated code change requests and conversation. So in Lovable now, there's a chat button. And when you click that button, you're talking to a different model, and it's going to give you advice, like on the educational point. This is to your point, Jyunmi. Yes, I can talk to that agent and it will give me information and guidance and so on. And it can also then, after it's developed a coherent plan through our conversation without ever touching the code, I can say, okay, now give me an action to implement the recommended code changes that you just arrived at. And when I click that implement the plan button that it produces in the chat, it then provides instruction to the coding agents that are going to make the changes. And those are two different sides of Lovable. And I found that very effective. And to Jyunmi's point about using models to help you understand coding, if you're not an expert coder, but have some basic understanding of what the process is, what I do is I take the instructions and conclusions that the chat agent has given me in Lovable, and I give them to Gemini 2.5 Pro. And I've prompted Gemini 2.5 Pro with its very long context window to give me an evaluation of what Lovable is suggesting it will do, and evaluate it, but explain it to me so that I understand all of the inner workings of coding. And so it does that. It has a little educational section for me. And then it says, here's what our advice to Lovable should be. And it generates all that. I literally cut and paste that as instruction to the chat agent. And then the chat agent will come back one more time with its revisions based on what Gemini 2.5 Pro suggested. I've learned in the process, and I have a really competent coding assistant, not only talking to me within Lovable, but another one over here giving me advice to refine the decisions there. And then a multi-agent system underneath Lovable's hood that will actually execute the code changes. And that changed the game for me. When I started that methodology, I was learning more, and I was not getting the same sort of rat holes that I was going into before, where changes were made that broke other pieces of the code base and made me spend weeks trying to fix something. Now that doesn't happen anymore.
Hey, Andy, when did you start again? Like, I remember, was it last year?
Well, I started the PRD last year. And I started designing the application and my notional sketching of what the user interface would be, both for the admin user and for the student user. But it wasn't until January that I started in Replit. I started it in Replit, and I ended up just with a completely confounded code base. And I gave that up, and I restarted in Lovable. And I've continued to work in Lovable.
Which is kind of crazy, right? Like, you started in January, but it's only been 6 and a bit months, and think like the changes we've seen from a coding, just a vibe coding perspective, can you imagine with everything, all the new releases, all the reasoning models that are just going to blow past ARC AGI 2, all the reasoning benchmarks we've seen, can you just imagine what the coding systems that are going to pull from that, from all these systems, what are these going to look like? And when people say, oh, you can't build, I'm like, yeah, but like you're thinking about it right now. Like, what are we going to see with GPT-5, 6, Grok 5, Claude Opus 5? Like, what are these things going to look like? But the capabilities for us is going to be tenfold, right? The leaps that we're seeing and new systems coming, I think like that's pretty encouraging. That's pretty exciting from that, to be able to build applications from scratch.
Yeah. In fact, our conversation about emergent, which you surfaced from the sort of the density of commentary that was happening on X about emergent, made me think, okay, should I start over again with emergent, because emergent has an enhanced capability, and could I surpass what I've done with Lovable over 5 months? You know, could I do that just by prompting emergent, and it would develop the application almost completely? I think there are some complexities with the content management system and building the content management side of the thing that I don't believe that emergent could actually produce, you know, immediately.
I know before I have to go because I have to hop off, but one thing that I think anybody who is vibe coding, maybe something to think about is after every milestone, ask whatever coding assistant you have, can you update my PRD based on everything we've done? So that way you have an updated PRD that you can take to whatever system that has come out, and then maybe it can do something even better.
That's an excellent suggestion. It's exactly what I did when I migrated from Replit to Lovable, is I had Replit generate the PRD that I would give to Lovable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Karl's going to turn into a pumpkin. I think the rest of us are as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a sci-fi AI show today. And it may be, I don't know who's going to be on, but it could very well be this cast. I think I will be there. Jyunmi will definitely be there. Andy, not sure.
I'll try to be there.
And we are talking about cyborg creatures because, yes, people, those are no longer sci-fi. That's real. We're going to talk about from the pond to the battlefield, the cyborg creature revolution. So come and join us there. And you can continue the conversation in the community, which is the Daily AI Show community.com. We'll have a conundrum coming out tomorrow and a newsletter on Sunday. That's at the dailyaishow.com. And we seem to be growing a little bit, so we're so excited about that. Thank you so much. Let your people know that we're here. Thanks to everybody who's taken a chance to comment lately and let us know that you're listening and what you like about it. Let us know what you don't like about it too. We're all ears. Yeah, thanks everybody so much. And for those of you who are going to join us for the Sci-Fi AI show, we'll see you in 5 hours. 11 plus between 11 to 4. All right, 5 hours from this moment if you'd like to join us live. Thanks everybody.
Aloha.